When a stranger asks you why you live like you're already dead, you have two choices: walk away or tell the truth. Ryan Cole made the wrong one, and it changed everything. Some questions cut deeper than insults. They slip past your defenses before you realize you're bleeding. At 32, Ryan had mastered the art of being invisible in crowded rooms, of moving through life without causing ripples. Then Ava Bennett asked him a question in front of 200 people, and suddenly everyone could see the wound he'd spent years hiding. This is a story about a man who stopped living, a woman who didn't know when to stop talking, and the mess that happens when honesty becomes unavoidable. If you want to see where this goes, stay until the end, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The Meridian Hotel ballroom dripped with the kind of wealth that made people forget their manners. Crystal chandeliers scattered fractured light across marble floors, and the air smelled like expensive perfume mixed with desperation. Everyone trying to impress someone, anyone, who might matter. Ryan Cole stood near the dessert table, holding a glass of champagne he hadn't touched, watching the annual Prescott Industries Gala unfold like a staged performance he'd seen too many times. He didn't belong here. Not really. The company required senior directors to attend, so Ryan attended. He wore the required navy suit, the required polite expression, and maintained the required professional distance. At 10:47 p.m., he'd check his watch, make a discreet exit, and drive the 30 minutes home where his daughter Emma would be asleep and Mrs. Chen, the sitter, would be watching Korean dramas on her phone. His life ran on schedules and systems. It had to. Ryan Cole, right? He turned. The woman beside him was maybe 25, 26, young enough that the company was still new and shiny to her, old enough to have gained confidence from a few successful quarters. Dark hair pulled into a high ponytail, green dress that probably cost a week of his grocery budget, smile that suggested she was used to getting reactions. "That's right," Ryan said. "I'm Ava Bennett. I just transferred to the marketing division last month." She extended her hand and he shook it briefly. Her grip was firmer than necessary. "I've heard about you. Nothing interesting, I hope." "Depends on your definition." She grabbed a chocolate-covered strawberry from the table, bit into it without ceremony. "People say you're brilliant, but impossible to know, like you're allergic to small talk or something." Ryan smiled politely. "I'm just not very social." "That's what makes you interesting." Ava studied him with the kind of directness that made most people uncomfortable. "Everyone else here is performing. You're the only person who looks like you'd rather be literally anywhere else." "Observant." "It's a skill." She popped the rest of the strawberry into her mouth. "So, what's your story? Wife at home? Secret life as a monk? Witness protection program?" "Nothing that dramatic. Come on, everyone's got something." Ava leaned against the table, clearly settling in for a conversation Ryan hadn't agreed to. "You're what, 35? 36? 32. Okay, 32. You dress like someone's grandfather, you leave every company event after exactly 45 minutes, and according to Sarah in accounting, you've turned down 3 promotions in the past 2 years. She counted on her fingers. That's not normal ambition for someone your age. So either you're independently wealthy, you hate success, or there's something else going on. Ryan's jaw tightened slightly. "I have priorities outside of work." "Like what?" "Like things that aren't anyone's business." The sharpness in his tone would have stopped most people. Ava just laughed. "See? Mysterious, I knew it." Before Ryan could excuse himself, a voice boomed across the ballroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention." Marcus Webb, the VP of Sales, stood on the small stage near the bar, microphone in hand, already flushed from too much wine. "We're going to kick off a little tradition we started last year, the truth game." Groans and cheers mixed together. Ryan's stomach dropped. "Here's how it works," Marcus continued, grinning like a game show host. "I pick someone, they pick someone else, and you ask them one completely honest question. They have to answer. No dodging, no corporate speak, just truth." He scanned the crowd. "Let's start with someone new. Ava Bennett, where are you?" Ava's eyes went wide. She raised her hand slowly. "Here." "Perfect. Come on up here." Ryan saw his escape route and took it, or tried to. He'd made it 3 steps toward the exit when Ava's voice rang out. "I pick Ryan Cole." The room turned. 200 faces swiveled in his direction. Ryan stopped walking. "Ryan!" Marcus waved him toward the stage. Don't be shy, buddy. Come on up. There was no polite way to refuse, not without looking weak or strange, or like he was hiding something worth hiding. Ryan understood corporate theater well enough to know that sometimes you had to play the part. He walked to the stage, expression neutral, while people whispered and watched. Ava stood beside Marcus, bouncing slightly on her heels, looking pleased with herself. Up close, Ryan could see she was nervous too. Her fingers twisted the small purse strap at her side, but she'd committed to the moment, and she wasn't backing down. Marcus handed her the microphone. All right, Ava, hit him with your best shot. Ava looked at Ryan for a long moment. The playfulness from earlier was still there, but something else lurked underneath, genuine curiosity, maybe even concern. She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. Why does a man like you live like he's already done with life? The room went silent. It wasn't a funny question. It wasn't flirty or clever. It was scalpel sharp and aimed directly at the center of Ryan's carefully constructed armor. People expected him to laugh it off, make a joke, deflect. Ryan looked at Ava, really looked at her. She was young and confident and probably thought she was being insightful. She had no idea what she'd just asked, no idea what door she'd just tried to kick open. He could have walked away, should have walked away. Instead, he took the microphone from her hand. You want the truth? His voice was steady, quiet enough that people leaned forward to hear. I had a life. A real one. A wife I loved more than I knew how to say. We were supposed to grow old together, raise our daughter, do all the normal things people do. The room was so quiet Ryan could hear ice shifting in someone's drink. Then one morning she went to the grocery store and never came home. Drunk driver ran a red light. She died on impact. He paused, not for effect, but because saying it out loud still felt like swallowing glass. Emma was 3 years old. She doesn't remember her mother's voice anymore. Doesn't remember the way she used to sing while cooking breakfast, or how she'd dance in the living room for no reason. Ava's face had gone pale. So yeah, Ryan continued, I live like I'm done with life. Because the life I wanted ended 5 years ago, and everything I do now is just making sure my daughter has something better than the wreckage I'm still standing in. He handed the microphone back to Marcus, who looked like he wanted to disappear, and walked off the stage. The crowd parted. No one spoke, no one tried to stop him. Ryan made it to the hallway before his hands started shaking. He pressed his palms against the cool wall, took 3 deep breaths, and checked his watch. 10:03 p.m. Close enough. He texted Mrs. Chen. On my way home. Behind him, the ballroom had erupted into nervous chatter, people trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Ryan didn't care. He'd given them the truth they asked for. Now they could choke on it. Bachet. Ava stood frozen on the stage, the microphone heavy in her hand. Marcus took it from her gently. Well, that was intense. He tried for a laugh, but it came out wrong. Let's take a break from the game, folks. Bar's still open. Music started playing again, too loud, too cheerful. People moved, dispersed, began talking about anything else. But Ava couldn't move. She kept replaying Ryan's words, the flat delivery, the way his eyes had looked right through her like she was made of glass. You okay? Sarah from accounting appeared at her elbow. I didn't know, Ava whispered. No one did. Ryan doesn't talk about it. Sarah squeezed her arm. Don't beat yourself up. You couldn't have known. But that was the problem, wasn't it? Ava had made assumptions. She'd seen a quiet man who kept to himself and decided he must be repressed, or boring, or afraid of living. She thought she was being clever, asking a question that would crack him open. She'd cracked him open, all right, and the inside wasn't mysterious or fascinating. It was just pain. Os. Ryan drove home on autopilot, the city lights blurring past. His phone buzzed twice, probably colleagues sending awkward apology texts, but he ignored it. The only person who mattered was waiting at home, asleep in her pink pajamas with the cartoon cats on them. The house was dark except for the porch light. Ryan paid Mrs. Chen, adding an extra 20 because it was later than he'd promised, and waited until she drove away before locking the door. He moved through the familiar routine, checked the locks, turn off lights, set the alarm. Emma's room was at the end of the hall. Ryan pushed the door open slowly, letting his eyes adjust to the glow of her nightlight. She was sprawled across the bed, one arm flung over her stuffed elephant, mouth slightly open. 8 years old and already growing too fast. He sat on the edge of her bed, careful not to wake her, and just watched. This was why he worked, why he kept going, why he turned down promotions that would mean more travel, more hours away from home. Emma was the only thing that mattered. "Dad?" Her voice was sleepy, confused. "Hey, Bug. Didn't mean to wake you." "You're home early." She yawned, rubbing her eyes. "Was the party boring?" "Something like that." "Did you bring me anything?" Ryan smiled. "There might be some fancy cookies in my jacket pocket." Emma sat up, suddenly more alert. "Really? Really? But tomorrow. It's late." She flopped back down, satisfied. "Okay. Love you, Dad." "Love you too, Emma." He stayed until her breathing evened out again, then went to his own room. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that used to be comfortable, before Sarah. Now it just felt empty. Ryan changed into old sweats, checked his phone. 7 messages. He deleted them without reading. Tomorrow he'd go back to work and people would either avoid him or treat him like he was made of porcelain. They'd whisper when he walked by. Wonder if he was okay. Pity him. He hated pity. But that was the price of honesty. And Ava Bennett had forced him to pay it. Fine. Ava didn't sleep. She lay in her apartment, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over. The way Ryan's voice hadn't wavered. The way he'd handed back the microphone like he'd just commented on the weather instead of exposing the worst thing that ever happened to him. She'd been at Prescott Industries for 6 weeks. 6 weeks of trying to make an impression, network, show people she was smart and capable and worth noticing. And tonight she'd succeeded. Everyone would remember her now, for all the wrong reasons. Her phone sat on the nightstand, dark and silent. She picked it up, opened the company directory, found Ryan Cole's email. Stared at the blank message screen. What could she possibly say? Sorry I publicly humiliated you? Sorry I asked a question I had no right to ask? Sorry I'm an idiot who thought she was being clever? Ava set the phone down. Words wouldn't fix this. But maybe there was something else she could do. She sat up, grabbed her laptop, and started typing. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. Ryan dropped Emma at school, exchanged the usual pleasantries with the other parents, and drove to the office. He parked in his assigned spot, grabbed his bag, and walked into the building like he did every weekday. People stared, not obviously, but he caught the glances, the way conversations paused when he entered the elevator, the sudden fascination with phone screens. By the time Ryan reached his office on the 7th floor, he'd been looked at by approximately 30 people and spoken to by 0. Perfect. He closed his door, booted up his computer, and opened his email. 247 unread messages. Most were work-related. Some were condolences disguised as professional check-ins. One was from Marcus Webb with the subject line, Friday night. Ryan deleted it without reading. He made it until 10:15 a.m. before someone knocked. Come in. His boss, Gerald Hartman, stepped inside. 60s, silver hair, perpetual expression of mild concern. Ryan, got a minute? Of course. Gerald closed the door and sat across from Ryan's desk. I wanted to check in. Friday was, well, it was a lot. It's fine. You sure? Because if you need some time or if you want to talk to someone in HR about, I'm fine, Gerald. Ryan kept his voice level. It was a stupid party game. It's over. I'd like to move on. Gerald studied him for a long moment, then nodded. All right, but my door's open if you change your mind. Appreciated. After Gerald left, Ryan allowed himself exactly 30 seconds of frustration, clenched jaw, closed eyes, deep breath, and then got back to work. He had 3 client reports due by end of week, a budget meeting at 2, and a conference call with the Seattle office at 4. There was no time for feelings. He made it through the morning, through lunch eaten at his desk, through the budget meeting where people were careful not to make eye contact for too long. At 3:47 p.m., someone knocked again. Ryan didn't look up from his computer. It's open. The door opened. Footsteps. The soft click of it closing. Hi. That voice. Ryan's hand stilled on the keyboard. He looked up. Ava Bennett stood just inside his office, wearing black slacks and a cream-colored blouse, hands clasped in front of her like a student called to the principal. Her confidence from Friday had vanished, replaced by something that looked like genuine remorse. You've got exactly 1 minute, Ryan said. I'm sorry. The words came out fast, tumbling over each other. I'm so sorry. What I did on Friday was completely out of line. I thought I was being clever or insightful or I don't know what. I didn't think about what I was actually asking or why it was none of my business or how it would feel to be put on the spot like that. Ryan said nothing. Ava swallowed. I've spent the entire weekend trying to figure out how to apologize, and I realize there's no way to make this okay. I can't take it back. I can't unhear what you said or unknow what I know now. But I wanted you to hear that I'm sorry, truly, and if there's anything I can do to... There isn't. Okay? Ava nodded quickly. Oh, okay. I needed you to know. She turned to leave. Ava. She stopped, hand on the doorknob. Don't do me any favors, Ryan said quietly. Don't tell people to stop staring or ask HR to send out some memo about respect and boundaries. Don't try to fix this. Just let it die on its own. I can do that. Good. She left. Ryan sat in the silence of his office, listening to the hum of his computer, the distant sound of phones ringing. He should have felt better. She'd apologized, meant it, and agreed to leave him alone. Instead, he just felt tired. Ket. 3 days passed. Ryan kept his head down, did his work, and counted the hours until he could go home. The staring decreased, the whispers faded. People started treating him normally again, or close enough. Emma had a school project due Friday, something about ecosystems, and Ryan spent Wednesday evening cutting out pictures of rainforest animals while she colored them in. This was his real life. The office, the gala, Ava Bennett, all of that was just noise. Dad, do sloths eat birds? Ryan looked up from the jaguar he was cutting out. I don't think so. Why? Because Mia said her cousin saw a sloth eat a bird, but that sounds wrong. Mia's cousin might be confused. Sloths mostly eat leaves. Emma nodded seriously, adding that information to her poster. Okay, that's what I thought. They worked in comfortable silence, the kind that only came from years of shared routine. Ryan glued, Emma colored, and for a little while the world was small and manageable. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ryan almost ignored it, but something made him check. A text message. This is Ava. I got your number from the company directory. I know you said not to fix things, but I wanted to send you this. Below the text was a photo. Ryan opened it, frowning. It was a flyer for a father-daughter art class at the community center. Saturdays, 10 a.m. to noon, all materials included. Another text came through. Emma's teacher mentioned she likes art. Thought this might be something you could do together. No response needed. Just wanted to share. Ryan stared at the screen. How did Ava know Emma's teacher? How did she know Emma liked art? Who's texting you? Emma peered over his arm. No one important. Ryan set the phone down. How's the sloth looking? Good. He's my favorite. Mine too. But Ryan's mind wasn't on the sloth anymore. It was on the fact that Ava Bennett had somehow figured out his daughter's interests and sent him information he'd never asked for. He should have been angry, should have texted back and told her to stop. Instead, he pulled up the community center's website and looked at the class description. Cuts. Saturday morning, Ryan and Emma walked into the community center at 9:52 a.m. The art room smelled like paint and clay. 8 other father-daughter pairs were already there, setting up at tables covered with plastic drop cloths. An instructor, middle-aged woman with paint-stained overalls, greeted them at the door. Welcome, first time? Yes, Ryan said. Wonderful. Grab any open table. We'll start in a few minutes. Emma practically vibrated with excitement. She picked a table near the window and immediately started examining the paint bottles. Ryan sat beside her, feeling out of place but trying not to show it. The class was fine. They painted ceramic flower pots. Emma's turned into a rainbow explosion with glitter. Ryan's was navy blue with white stars, because that's what Emma had requested. This is so cool, Dad, Emma whispered halfway through, paint on her nose. Can we come back next week? Ryan looked at her. Really looked at her. When was the last time he'd seen her this happy about something that wasn't a screen? Yeah, he said. We can come back. Emma beamed. After class, they walked to the parking lot. Ryan loaded their painted pots carefully into the back seat, while Emma chattered about which colors she wanted to try next week. His phone buzzed. Another text from Ava. "Did you go?" Ryan hesitated, then typed back, "Yes." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "How was it?" Ryan looked at Emma, who was buckled into her seat, still grinning. He typed, "Good, she loved it." "I'm glad." Ryan waited for more, some explanation about how she'd found out about Emma or why she'd sent the information, but no other messages came. He got in the car, started the engine, and drove home, and tried not to think about the fact that a woman he barely knew had just given his daughter one of the best mornings she'd had in months. Monday at work, Ryan saw Ava in the hallway. She was talking to someone from legal, laughing at something they'd said. When she noticed Ryan, she gave a small nod, polite, distant, and went back to her conversation. No approach, no questions, no intrusion. Exactly what he'd asked for. So why did it bother him? Ryan shook off the thought and headed to his meeting. He had work to do, real work, not whatever this was. But that night, after Emma was asleep, he pulled up the text thread again. Read Ava's messages. Read his own short responses. And wondered what kind of person apologizes by learning about a stranger's 8-year-old daughter and finding ways to make her happy without asking for credit. The kind of person who asks dangerous questions, apparently, and doesn't know when to leave well enough alone. Ryan locked his phone and went to bed. But sleep didn't come easy. The second Saturday art class went better than the first. Emma finished her pot early and convinced the instructor to let her start a canvas painting, something abstract involving purple mountains and a green sky, because regular colors are boring, Dad. Ryan watched her work, noticing how she bit her lower lip when concentrating, the same way Sarah used to. He didn't let himself think about that too long. When they got home, Emma insisted on displaying both pots in the living room window where everyone walking by could see them. Ryan helped her arrange them on the sill, stepping back to admire her handiwork. "They're perfect," Emma declared. They really are." "Can we do the class forever?" Ryan smiled. "We'll do it as long as you want." "Even when I'm old, like 20? "Even then." Emma hugged him quickly, then ran off to her room to add the art class to her calendar, a habit she'd picked up from watching Ryan organize his own schedule. He'd bought her a kid-sized planner last Christmas, and she took it seriously, writing everything in careful block letters. Ryan's phone buzzed. He expected another text from Ava. She'd sent one last Saturday asking how class went, but this time it was from Gerald. "Need to talk Monday. Important." Ryan frowned. Gerald didn't text about work on weekends unless something was wrong. He typed back, "Everything okay?" The response came immediately. "Fine, just need to discuss an opportunity." An opportunity. That meant a promotion, or a project, or something else Ryan would have to turn down. He'd been through this before. Gerald meant well, but he didn't understand that Ryan's life had a ceiling, and it wasn't made of ambition. He set the phone aside and spent the rest of the afternoon playing board games with Emma, letting her win at checkers twice before finally beating her on the third round. She accused him of going easy on her, which was partly true, but he'd learned that letting her win every time made the real victories meaningless. That night, after Emma was asleep, Ryan sat at the kitchen table with a beer. He wasn't really drinking and thought about Ava's text from earlier in the week. She'd sent it Wednesday, completely out of context. "Does Emma like science?" He'd answered, "Why?" "Just curious." Ryan hadn't responded after that, but he'd wondered about it for 3 days. What was Ava planning, and why did she care about a kid she'd never met? He picked up his phone, scrolled to her contact, and stared at the keyboard. Then he set it down again. Whatever Ava was doing, it wasn't his problem. She'd apologized, he'd accepted, and that should have been the end of it. The art class was a nice gesture, but it didn't change anything. Ryan's life was full. There was no room for complications. He finished the beer, rinsed the bottle, and went to bed. Monday morning brought rain and traffic. Ryan dropped Emma at school 10 minutes late because of an accident on Highway 7, which meant she had to get a tardy slip from the office. She didn't complain, but Ryan felt the failure anyway. One more thing he should have anticipated and didn't. At work, he made it through 2 meetings before Gerald summoned him to his office. "Close the door," Gerald said. Ryan did, then sat in the same chair he'd occupied 2 weeks ago when Gerald had checked on him after the gala incident. Gerald leaned back, fingers steepled. I'm going to cut to the chase. The Seattle office needs a new director of operations. It's a significant step up from your current role. Bigger team, bigger budget, better compensation package. And you're my first choice. Ryan had expected this. Still, hearing it out loud felt like being handed a test he'd already failed. I appreciate the consideration, Ryan said carefully, but I can't relocate. Emma's school, her routine. It's not a relocation, Gerald interrupted. It's remote leadership with quarterly trips to Seattle, maybe 1 week per quarter. The rest you'd do from here. Ryan hesitated. That was different. That was almost feasible. What's the travel schedule look like? 4 trips a year, give or take. Each trip is 5 to 7 days, depending on what needs handling. Gerald slid a folder across the desk. Full details are in here. Salary bump is 30%. Stock options. Better benefits. And before you say no, think about what this could mean for Emma's future. College fund, savings, stability. Ryan opened the folder, scanned the first page. The numbers were good. Better than good. When do you need an answer? End of the week. I know it's fast, but Seattle's pushing for a decision. Gerald's expression softened. Ryan, I know you've got priorities outside this office. I respect that. But you're too talented to stay in a role you outgrew 2 years ago. At some point, you've got to let yourself move forward. There was that phrase again. Move forward. Like it was simple. Like Ryan's entire existence wasn't built around staying exactly where he was, because movement meant risk, and risk meant loss. I'll think about it, Ryan said. That's all I'm asking. Ryan left Gerald's office with the folder tucked under his arm and a knot forming in his chest. 30% salary increase. Better benefits. Quarterly trips that would take him away from Emma for a week at a time. He made it back to his office, closed the door, and sat down heavily. 4 trips a year, 28 days away from home. Could Mrs. Chen handle full weeks? Would Emma resent him for being gone? Would he miss something important? A school play? A bad day? The moment she decided she didn't need him anymore? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi, Mr. Cole. This is Deborah Chen. Emma left her lunch at home this morning. I can bring it to the school if you're busy. Ryan cursed under his breath. He'd been so distracted by the tardy situation that he'd forgotten to check Emma's backpack. I'll handle it, he typed back. Thank you. He grabbed his keys, told his assistant he'd be back in 30 minutes, and drove to the house. Emma's lunchbox sat on the kitchen counter, right where she'd left it. Inside, a turkey sandwich, apple slices, string cheese, and the chocolate chip cookies she'd insisted on packing herself. Ryan drove to the school, signed in at the office, and delivered the lunchbox to Emma's classroom. She was in the middle of a math lesson, but her face lit up when she saw him at the door. The teacher, Ms. Brennan, young and enthusiastic, stepped into the hallway. Mr. Cole, thank you so much. Emma was pretty worried. My fault. Busy morning. Ms. Brennan smiled. It happens. She's doing great, by the way. Her rainforest project was one of the best in the class. She worked hard on it. It shows. Miss Brennan paused, then added, I hope this isn't overstepping, but I wanted to mention a woman named Ava called last week asking about what subjects Emma enjoys. She said she was a family friend. I gave her some general information, nothing specific. I hope that was okay. Ryan's stomach dropped. What kind of information? Just that Emma likes art and science. I didn't share anything personal. Ms. Brennan looked concerned now. Was I not supposed to? She seemed very nice, and she said she was helping you find activities. It's fine, Ryan said, forcing his voice to stay level. Thank you for letting me know. He walked back to his car on autopilot, got in, and sat there for a full minute before starting the engine. Ava had called Emma's teacher, had asked questions, had gathered information without asking Ryan first. That wasn't a kind gesture. That was a boundary violation. Ryan drove back to the office, parked, and instead of going inside, pulled out his phone. He called Ava's extension. She answered on the second ring. This is Ava. It's Ryan Cole. We need to talk. A pause. Okay, when? Now, my office. I'll be right there. Ryan hung up, got out of the car, and walked into the building. He took the elevator to the 7th floor, went straight to his office, and waited. 3 minutes later, Ava knocked. Come in. She entered looking wary, like she'd expected this conversation eventually. Smart. Ryan didn't offer her a seat. You called my daughter's teacher. I did. Why? Ava closed the door behind her. Because I wanted to help, and I didn't know how else to do it. Help with what exactly? With making sure Emma has opportunities you might not have time to research. Ava's voice was steady, but her hands twisted together. I know you're busy. I know you're doing everything alone. I thought if I could just find some things she might like. You don't get to make decisions about my daughter, Ryan said, and his voice came out colder than he'd intended. I don't care how good your intentions are. You don't call her teacher. You don't ask questions about her. You don't insert yourself into her life without my permission. You're right. Ava didn't try to defend herself. I overstepped. I'm sorry. This is the second time you've apologized to me in 2 weeks. At some point, sorry stops meaning anything. I know. Ryan took a breath, trying to rein in his anger. I appreciate what you did with the art class. I do. But that doesn't give you access to my life. Emma is off limits completely. Do you understand? Yes. Good. Ryan moved to open the door, a clear dismissal. We're done here. Ava didn't move. Can I ask you something first? No. Just one question, then I'll leave you alone. Ryan's jaw tightened. What? Why are you so angry? Because you crossed a line. That's not why. Ava looked directly at him, and there was something in her expression that wasn't defensive or apologetic, just honest. You're angry because I made you feel something, because for 1 second you considered that maybe letting someone help isn't the worst thing in the world, and that terrifies you. Ryan stared at her. You don't know anything about me. I know you're exhausted. I know you're doing everything right, and it's still not enough. I know that every day you wake up and carry this whole world on your back, and you can't let anyone else hold even a piece of it because you're convinced that if you do, everything will fall apart. Ava's voice softened. I'm not trying to take anything from you, Ryan. I'm just trying to give something back. I didn't ask for your help. I know. That's why I'm offering. They stood there in silence, 2 feet apart, and Ryan hated that she was right, hated that her words had landed exactly where they were aimed. I don't need your help, he said finally. Okay? Ava stepped toward the door. But if you change your mind, I'm here. She left. Ryan sank into his chair and pressed his palms against his eyes. His head was pounding, his chest felt tight, and he had 4 hours of work left before he could go home and pretend this day hadn't happened. The folder from Gerald sat on his desk, unopened since this morning. Ryan picked it up, flipped through the pages. The job description was impressive. The salary was more than he'd ever made. The travel schedule was manageable, in theory, but who would help with Emma during those week-long trips? Mrs. Chen was great, but she was 64 and couldn't handle overnight stays. Emma's grandparents lived in Florida and had their own health issues. There was no backup plan, no safety net. Unless, Ryan shook his head. No, absolutely not. He closed the folder and got back to work. That evening, Emma had soccer practice. Ryan stood on the sidelines with the other parents, half watching the drills while his mind circled the same problems. The Seattle job, Ava's accusation, the fact that he couldn't remember the last time he'd had a conversation with another adult that didn't involve Emma's schedule or work deadlines. Your daughter's got a good kick. Ryan turned. The man beside him was tall, mid-40s, wearing a faded college sweatshirt. Ryan had seen him at practices before but never talked to him. Thanks. She works hard. I'm Joel. My daughter's the one in the blue headband. Ryan. They shook hands briefly. You coming to the team pizza thing Friday? Joel asked. Ryan had forgotten about that. Probably not. Work's busy. Yeah, I get it. Joel's tone was easy, understanding. Single dad? Ryan hesitated, then nodded. Yeah. Me too. 3 years now. Joel watched the girls run drills. It's tough, right? Everyone assumes you've got it figured out, but half the time you're just making it up as you go. Pretty much. Well, if you ever need someone to cover a practice pickup or whatever, let me know. We single dads got to stick together. It was a casual offer, the kind people made without expecting follow-through. But something about the way Joel said it, easy without pity, made Ryan actually consider it. Appreciate that, Ryan said. They watched the rest of practice in companionable silence. When it ended, Emma ran over, sweaty and grinning. "Did you see my goal, Dad?" "I did. That was great." "Coach says I'm getting faster." "You are." On the drive home, Emma chattered about soccer strategy and who was the fastest runner and whether she should try playing defense next season. Ryan listened, made appropriate comments, and tried not to think about how much easier this would be if there were two of them splitting the load. After dinner and homework and the usual bedtime routine, Ryan sat on the couch with his laptop and pulled up the Seattle job posting. He read through it again, slower this time, weighing every detail. The money would change things. Emma could go to a better college, or they could move to a bigger house, or Ryan could finally replace the car that was held together by hope and duct tape. But money didn't matter if he wasn't there. If Emma grew up resenting him for always being gone, always choosing work over her. His phone buzzed, a text from Ava. "I meant what I said earlier. If you need help, I'm here." No strings attached. Ryan stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed, "Why do you care?" 3 dots appeared immediately. "Because I ruined your life at a party, and I'm trying to make it right. You didn't ruin my life, you just made one bad night worse. Still, I owe you." Ryan hesitated, then wrote, "You don't owe me anything. We're even. Are we?" He didn't know how to answer that, so he didn't. Instead, he asked, "Did you really call Emma's teacher?" "Yes, I'm sorry. I thought I was helping. Don't do it again." "I won't. I promise." Ryan set the phone down and rubbed his face. This was ridiculous. He was texting with a woman he barely knew about boundaries she'd already crossed twice. He should block her number and move on. But he didn't. Instead, he picked up the phone again and typed, "There's a job opportunity, remote mostly, but it requires quarterly travel, week-long trips to Seattle." The response came fast. "That sounds like a good opportunity." "It is, but I don't have anyone to watch Emma for a full week." 3 dots. Then, "What about Mrs. Chen? She can't do overnights. What about Emma's grandparents?" "Florida. And not in great health." A longer pause this time. Then, "What if I did it?" Ryan's chest tightened. "What?" "What if I stayed with Emma during your trips? I could sleep in your guest room, make sure she gets to school, handle practices and homework. You said I can't help, but this is something I could actually do." "You're serious? Completely?" Ryan stood up, started pacing. This was insane. Let a virtual stranger live in his house and take care of his daughter while he was across the country? That wasn't help. That was reckless. But the alternative was turning down the job, staying exactly where he was, playing it safe for another 5 years until Emma didn't need him anymore, and he'd wasted every opportunity that came his way. He typed, "I don't know you, so get to know me. We have time before you'd need to decide. This is crazy. Maybe. But you're considering it, which means it's not that crazy." Ryan stopped pacing. She was right. He was considering it. Against every instinct, every rule he'd built his life around, he was actually thinking about letting Ava Bennett into the one part of his world he'd protected above everything else. "I need to think about it," he typed. "That's fair. Take all the time you need." Ryan set the phone down and sat heavily on the couch. His life had been simple 3 weeks ago. Predictable. Safe. Then Ava had asked a question at a party, and suddenly everything was complicated. The next morning, Ryan called Gerald and asked for an extension on the decision. Gerald gave him until the end of the month, 2 more weeks. Enough time to figure out if this was a real possibility or just desperation making him stupid. At lunch, Ryan did something he never did. He left the office and drove to the coffee shop 3 blocks from work. Ava was already there, sitting at a corner table with her laptop open. She looked up when he approached. "You came," she said, sounding surprised. "Don't make me regret it." Ryan sat across from her. "We need to establish some ground rules." "Okay. First, this is a conversation, not a commitment. I'm exploring options, and you're one of them. That's it." "Understood." "Second, if this happens, and that's a big if, you follow my rules. Emma's schedule, her diet, her bedtime. Everything stays exactly the same as when I'm there." "Of course." "Third, you don't make decisions without asking me first. No surprise art classes, no calls to teachers, No improvising. Ava nodded. No improvising. Got it. Ryan studied her. Why are you really doing this? I told you it. No, the real reason. Ava closed her laptop, giving him her full attention. You want the truth? Always. I don't have a family. My parents divorced when I was 12, and they both started new families that didn't really include me. I spent my teenage years bouncing between houses where I was always the extra kid, the one who didn't quite fit. She paused. When I saw you at that gala, I saw someone who had what I always wanted, a real connection, a real purpose, and I destroyed it in front of 200 people because I thought I was being clever. You didn't destroy anything. I hurt you. I know I did. Ava's voice was steady, but her eyes were bright. So yeah, maybe I'm trying to make up for that, but also maybe I just want to be part of something that matters, even if it's just for a week at a time. Ryan didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. They sat in silence for a moment, the coffee shop noise filling the space between them. Finally, Ryan spoke. If we do this, you meet Emma first. Spend time with her. Let her get comfortable. I'm not bringing a stranger into my house. That's fair. And I need references. People who can vouch for you, not from work, actual people who know you. I can get you those. Okay? Ryan stood up. I'll think about it. Ryan? Ava looked up at him. Thank you for considering this. I know it's not easy. Nothing worthwhile is. He left before she could respond, walked back to his office, and tried to focus on the client reports due Friday. But his mind kept drifting to the conversation, to Ava's admission about her family, to the possibility of something different. That weekend, Ryan made a decision. Sunday afternoon, he texted Ava. Emma and I are going to the Science Museum next Saturday. You're invited. Let's see how you two get along. The response was immediate. I'll be there. Thank you. Ryan told Emma that night at dinner. There's someone from work who might help out when I travel sometimes. I thought she could come with us to the museum next week. That okay with you? Emma looked up from her spaghetti. Is she nice? I think so. But you can decide for yourself. Okay. Does she like dinosaurs? I don't know. You can ask her. Emma considered this, then went back to her dinner. Crisis averted. The week crawled by. Ryan worked, attended meetings, helped with homework, and tried not to obsess over whether he was making a huge mistake. Thursday night, Ava texted, What should I know about Emma before Saturday? Ryan thought about it, then wrote, She's shy at first, but warms up quickly. She loves facts and hates being talked down to. Treat her like a small adult, not a kid, and you'll be fine. Got it. Anything else? She asks a lot of questions. Answer them honestly, even if the answer is, I don't know. I can do that. Saturday arrived gray and cold. Ryan and Emma met Ava in the museum parking lot at 10. Ava wore jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, looking younger and less intimidating than she did at the office. Hi, she said, smiling at Emma. You must be Emma. I'm Ava. Emma studied her seriously. Do you like dinosaurs? I do, especially velociraptors. Those aren't real dinosaurs. They're smaller than the movies show. Ava's smile widened. You're absolutely right. I should have said Deinonychus. Emma's eyes lit up. You know about Deinonychus? I did some research before today. Wanted to make sure I could keep up with you. And just like that, Emma decided Ava was acceptable. They spent the next 3 hours exploring exhibits, Emma leading the way and explaining everything she knew about prehistoric life. Ava listened, asked questions, and never once checked her phone. Ryan watched from a half step behind, observing the way Ava crouched down to Emma's level when she talked, the way she let Emma take the lead but offered gentle suggestions when she got overwhelmed by choices. At lunch in the museum cafe, Emma was chattering about plate tectonics when she suddenly asked, Are you going to be my babysitter? Ryan nearly choked on his coffee. Ava handled it smoothly. Maybe sometimes, when your dad has to travel for work. Would that be okay with you? Emma shrugged. I guess. Mrs. Chen is nice, but she always falls asleep during movies. I promise not to fall asleep during movies. Okay, you can babysit. And that was that. Emma had made her decision. On the drive home, Emma fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the museum. Ryan glanced at her in the rearview mirror, then pulled out his phone at a red light and texted Ava. She liked you. I liked her too. She's amazing, Ryan. Yeah, she is. So what happens now? Ryan sat at the light, watching it turn green, then yellow, then red again, without moving. The car behind him honked. He drove forward, turned the corner toward home, and made a decision that felt like jumping off a cliff. Give me those references. Let's make this work. Ava's references checked out. 3 former roommates, a college professor, and her previous boss all said the same thing. Responsible, trustworthy, maybe a little impulsive, but always well-intentioned. Ryan spent 2 evenings on the phone listening to strangers tell him about a woman he was trusting with the most important person in his life. It still felt insane. But he called Gerald on Monday morning and accepted the Seattle position anyway. "You're sure?" Gerald asked, surprise evident in his voice. "I'm sure." "Well, all right then. I'll get the paperwork started. First trip is mid-November. That gives you 3 weeks to prepare." 3 weeks. Ryan hung up and stared at his calendar, feeling the weight of what he'd just committed to. 21 days to make sure Ava knew Emma's routine, her preferences, her fears. 21 days to convince himself this wasn't the worst decision he'd ever made. He texted Ava, "It's official. I start in November. First trip is the 14th through the 20th. Her response came within seconds. "Congratulations. What do you need from me?" "Everything. We need to go over schedules, medical information, emergency contacts. Can you come over tonight after Emma goes to bed? I'll be there at 8. Ryan spent the rest of the day in meetings, barely listening, mentally cataloging everything Ava would need to know. Emma's peanut allergy. The fact that she had nightmares sometimes and needed the hallway light left on. How she liked her sandwiches cut diagonally, not straight across, because triangles tasted better. The small things that made up a life. That evening, after Emma was asleep, Ryan heard the doorbell ring precisely at 8. Ava stood on the porch in jeans and a hoodie, holding a notebook and looking nervous. "Come in," Ryan said, stepping aside. She followed him to the kitchen table, where he'd laid out 3 years' worth of Emma's medical records, school schedules, and emergency contact lists. Ava's eyes widened. "That's a lot of information." "It's everything you need to know." Ryan sat down, gesturing for her to do the same. "We're going to go through all of it, tonight and probably tomorrow night too." "Okay." Ava opened her notebook, pen ready. "I'm ready." They started with the basics. Emma's daily routine: wake up at 6:30, breakfast by 7, school drop-off at 7:45. Soccer practice Mondays and Wednesdays, art class Saturdays, library time Sundays. Ryan talked, Ava wrote, and the list grew longer. "She doesn't like loud noises," Ryan said. "Fireworks, thunder, fire alarms, they make her anxious. If there's a storm, she'll probably come sleep in the guest room with you." "Got it. What helps when she's anxious?" "Her stuffed elephant. His name is Humphrey." "Don't laugh." Ava smiled. "I wouldn't dare." They went through medications: children's Tylenol for fevers, her inhaler for exercise-induced asthma, the EpiPen she'd never needed but always carried. Ryan showed Ava where everything was stored, made her practice finding it with her eyes closed. "If something happens and you can't remember where the EpiPen is, Emma dies," Ryan said flatly. "So you need to know." Ava's face went pale, but she nodded. "Show me again." They practiced 5 more times until Ava could locate it blindfolded. At 10:30, they took a break. Ryan made coffee while Ava stretched, rolling her shoulders. "This is more intense than I expected," she admitted. "This is a child's life. It should be intense." "I know, Ava paused. "I want to do this right." "Then pay attention and ask questions when you're unsure." Ryan handed her a mug. "I won't be here to fix mistakes, so there can't be any mistakes." "No pressure. This was your idea." Ava took the coffee, wrapping both hands around the warm mug. "Can I ask you something?" "Why are you really doing this? The job, I mean. You could have said no." Ryan leaned against the counter. "Because Emma deserves better than watching me turn down opportunities for the rest of her childhood. She's smart enough to notice, and eventually she'll figure out she's the reason I'm stuck." "You're not stuck." "I am, and that's fine. I chose it. But if there's a way to move forward without sacrificing her safety, I have to try." He took a drink. "Even if it means trusting someone I barely know. For what it's worth, I won't let you down." "You better not." They worked until midnight, covering everything from Emma's favorite bedtime stories to the protocol for school sick days. When Ava finally left, her notebook was full, and Ryan's voice was hoarse from talking. He locked the door behind her, checked on Emma, still asleep, Humphrey tucked under one arm, and collapsed into bed. 3 weeks suddenly felt like nowhere near enough time. The next 2 weeks blurred together. Ava came over 4 more times, learning Emma's homework routine, meeting Mrs. Chen, memorizing the route to school. Ryan made her practice the morning routine twice, timing her to make sure she could get Emma ready and out the door without being late. The first practice run was a disaster. Ava forgot to check Emma's backpack for homework, didn't notice Emma had put on mismatched socks, and drove past the school drop-off lane because she was looking at the GPS. "I'm sorry," Ava said when they got back to the house, looking miserable. "I'll do better." "You will," Ryan agreed, "because we're doing it again tomorrow." The second attempt went smoother. Ava caught the backpack issue, noticed the socks, and navigated the drop-off lane perfectly. Emma thought the whole thing was hilarious, treating it like a game. "Ava's getting better, Dad," she announced at dinner. "She only forgot one thing today." "What did she forget?" Ryan asked. "My water bottle. But I told her and she fixed it." Ryan looked at Ava, who nodded confirmation. "Emma reminded me before we left the house. I won't forget again." "Good." A week before Ryan's departure, Gerald called him into the office. "Seattle's excited to have you. They've scheduled meetings for your entire first week. Introductions, systems training, the works. You ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be." "How's the childcare situation?" "Covered." Gerald studied him. "You sure? Because if you need flexibility on this first trip..." "I'm sure." Ryan kept his voice firm. "Everything's in place." It wasn't entirely true. Ryan still woke up at 3 a.m. sometimes, running through worst-case scenarios. What if Emma had an emergency and Ava panicked? What if something went wrong and he was 3,000 miles away? What if he'd made a terrible mistake trusting someone whose biggest qualification was guilt? But the job started in 6 days, and backing out now meant admitting defeat. On Saturday, Ryan took Emma and Ava to the art class together. It was Ava's first time attending, and Ryan watched her navigate the organized chaos of 8-year-olds with paint and glitter. She helped Emma mix colors, cleaned up spills without fussing, and managed to get more paint on herself than the canvas. "You're messy," Emma observed. "I know. I'm terrible at art." "It's okay. Dad's terrible too." Ryan, overhearing this from the next table, couldn't help but smile. "Thanks, Bug." "You're welcome." After class, they got ice cream. Emma ordered her usual, chocolate with rainbow sprinkles, while Ava deliberated for 5 minutes before choosing vanilla. "Boring," Emma declared. "Classic," Ava countered. "Same thing." They sat outside despite the November chill, Emma swinging her legs and cataloging everything she'd learned that day. Ava listened attentively, asking questions that showed she was actually paying attention. Ryan watched them interact, looking for cracks in the foundation. Signs that this arrangement wouldn't work. But Emma was comfortable, Ava was careful, and nothing felt forced. Maybe it would be okay. That night, Ryan sat Emma down in her room for a serious conversation. "You know I'm leaving on Monday for work, right?" Emma nodded, hugging Humphrey. "Seattle, you told me. And Ava's going to stay here with you while I'm gone." "I know. If you need anything at all, you can call me, day or night. I'll have my phone with me always." "Okay." "Are you worried?" Ryan asked gently. Emma thought about it. "A little, but Ava's nice, and you'll come back, right?" "Of course I'll come back." "Then it's fine." Emma's logic was simple, unshakable. "You always come back." Ryan pulled her into a hug, holding on longer than necessary. She was growing up too fast, becoming more independent, and part of him hated it even as he knew it was necessary. "I love you, Bug." "Love you too, Dad." Sunday was preparation day. Ryan went through the house with Ava one final time, showing her where the circuit breaker was, how to work the finicky thermostat, which step on the stairs creaked. He'd written everything down in a binder, 20 pages of instructions, contact numbers, and contingency plans. "This is more detailed than a user manual," Ava said, flipping through it. "Read it anyway, twice." "I will." That evening, Ryan made Emma's favorite dinner, spaghetti and meatballs, and they ate together in the kitchen, the 3 of them. It felt strange having Ava there, like they were playing house, pretending to be something they weren't. But Emma chattered happily about her week, and Ava asked about the upcoming school science fair, and slowly the strangeness faded into something almost normal. After dinner, Emma asked if they could watch a movie. Ryan agreed, and they settled on the couch. Emma in the middle, Ryan on one side, Ava on the other. Halfway through, Emma fell asleep against Ryan's shoulder. "She does this every time," Ryan whispered. "It's sweet," Ava whispered back. They finished the movie in silence. When the credits rolled, Ryan carefully lifted Emma and carried her to bed. She barely stirred when he tucked her in, just mumbled something incoherent and rolled over. He found Ava in the kitchen washing dishes. "You don't have to do that," Ryan said. "I know, but I'm here anyway." Ryan grabbed a towel and started drying. They worked in comfortable silence until everything was clean and put away. "I should go," Ava said finally. "You've got an early flight." "Yeah," Ryan walked her to the door. "Remember, if anything happens, I call you immediately." "I know." Ava smiled. "We've been over this 17 times. 18, actually." "Right. 18. She paused, hand on the doorknob. "Ryan, I know you're scared. I would be too, but I promise I'll take care of her like she's my own." "She's not yours." The words came out harsher than Ryan intended, and Ava flinched. "I know that," she said quietly. I just meant I'll do my best." Ryan sighed, rubbing his face. "I'm sorry. I'm on edge." "You're allowed to be. Get some sleep. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon." After Ava left, Ryan double-checked all the locks, set the alarm, and went to his room. His suitcase sat packed by the door, ready for the 6 a.m. flight. Everything was arranged. Everything was planned. So why did he feel like he was abandoning his daughter? Monday morning arrived too fast. Ryan's alarm went off at 4:30. He showered, dressed, and stood in Emma's doorway for a full minute, watching her sleep. Part of him wanted to cancel the trip, call Gerald, say there'd been a mistake. But he didn't. Instead, he kissed Emma's forehead gently. She didn't wake, and left a note on her nightstand. "Love you, Bug. Be good for Ava. Call me anytime. Back on Sunday. Dad." Mrs. Chen arrived at 5 to stay until Ava came at 6:30. Ryan went over everything one last time, then grabbed his suitcase and walked out the door. The drive to the airport was quiet. Ryan kept his phone in the cup holder, checking it at every red light, even though he knew Emma wouldn't be awake yet. Security was quick, the gate was on time, and Ryan boarded the plane feeling numb. He found his seat, stored his bag, and stared out the window as the sky slowly lightened. His phone buzzed. A text from Ava. "Just got to the house. Emma's still asleep. Mrs. Chen says everything's good. Have a safe flight." Ryan typed back, "Thanks. Remember, I know. I've got the binder memorized." The flight attendant announced they were closing the cabin doors. Ryan put his phone in airplane mode and tried to breathe normally. 6 days. He could do 6 days. The flight was uneventful. Ryan worked on his laptop, reviewed the Seattle meeting schedule, and tried not to calculate how many minutes until he could call home. They landed at 10:30 Pacific time, and Ryan turned his phone back on immediately. 3 texts from Ava. Emma woke up fine, ate breakfast, got dressed without any issues, drop-off went perfectly. She showed me where to park and everything. She asked me to tell you she loves you and to bring back a souvenir. Ryan felt something in his chest unclench slightly. He texted back, "Thank you. Let me know how pickup goes." The Seattle office was downtown, all glass and steel and aggressively modern furniture. Ryan met his new team, 12 people ranging from eager interns to exhausted senior staff, and spent the afternoon in meetings learning systems he'd be responsible for managing. It was good work, important work, the kind of thing Ryan was actually qualified for, but every time his phone buzzed, he reached for it immediately. 3:15 p.m. Pacific. Pickup successful. Emma showed me her art project. It's a volcano, currently at soccer practice. 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Home now. Emma's doing homework. We're making tacos for dinner per the schedule. 7 p.m. Pacific. Homework done. She wants to call you before bed. Ryan was in his hotel room when the FaceTime call came through. Emma's face filled the screen, grinning. "Dad! Seattle's 3 hours different." "It is. You learned about time zones?" "Ava taught me. She showed me on a map." Emma held up a piece of paper with what looked like a hand-drawn United States, time zones colored in crayon. See? That's great, Bug. How was your day? Good. I got 100 on my spelling test, and Coach said my kicks are getting stronger, and Ava made tacos, but they were kind of messy. Hey, Ava's voice came from off-screen. They were fine. They fell apart, Emma giggled. Structural integrity issues, Ava admitted, moving into frame. We improvised with forks. Ryan smiled despite himself. Sounds like you're managing. We are. Ava looked tired but happy. Everything's under control here. How's Seattle? Busy. Lots of meetings. Boring, Emma declared. Very boring, Ryan agreed, but I'll be home Sunday. They talked for 15 more minutes. Emma showed him the volcano project, detailed the drama happening at recess, and explained her theory about why dinosaurs were better than mammals. Ryan listened to every word, memorizing the sound of her voice. When they finally said goodbye, Ryan sat in the quiet hotel room and realized he'd made it through one day. 5 more to go. More parts. The week crawled by. Ryan worked 12-hour days, attended dinners with the Seattle leadership team, and called home every night. Emma settled into the routine with Ava faster than Ryan had expected. They had inside jokes by Wednesday. By Thursday, Emma was calling Ava to ask permission for things instead of waiting to ask Ryan. It should have been a relief. Instead, it made Ryan feel obsolete. Friday evening, Ryan was walking back to his hotel when his phone rang. Ava's name on the screen. He answered immediately. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Ava said quickly. Emma's fine, but she's asking if you can come to her science fair next Friday. I checked the calendar and didn't see it listed, so I wanted to make sure. Science fair? Yeah, apparently it got scheduled last minute. The volcano project is her entry. Ryan pulled up his calendar. Next Friday, he was supposed to be in back-to-back meetings reviewing Q4 projections. Tell her I'll be there. You sure? I can go if you're busy. I'll be there, Ryan repeated. What time? 6 p.m. In the school gym. Got it. Tell Emma I wouldn't miss it. After they hung up, Ryan emailed Gerald requesting to leave work early next Friday. Gerald approved immediately with a note. Family comes first. See you Monday. That night's call with Emma was easier. She was excited about the science fair, nervous about presenting her volcano, and confident it was going to be the best one there. Ava helped me paint it, Emma said. She's actually pretty good at volcanoes, just not tacos. I heard that, Ava called from somewhere in the background. You were supposed to, Emma yelled back, then giggled. Ryan listened to them banter, feeling like an outsider in his own life. They'd built something in 5 days, not a replacement for what Emma had with him, but something separate, something that existed independent of Ryan's presence. It was exactly what he'd needed to happen. So why did it sting? Saturday morning, Ryan flew home. The plane landed at 2 p.m. and he drove straight from the airport to the house. His house, that Ava had been living in for a week. He pulled into the driveway and sat there for a moment, collecting himself. Through the front window, he could see movement, Emma and Ava doing something in the living room. Ryan got out of the car, grabbed his suitcase, and walked to the door. He'd barely gotten his key in the lock when it flew open. Dad! Emma launched herself at him, and Ryan caught her, holding tight. Hey, Bug. I missed you. I missed you too. Did you bring a souvenir? Maybe. Is it a yes, maybe, or a no, maybe? Definitely a yes, maybe. Emma squealed and ran back inside, leaving Ryan standing in the doorway. Ava appeared, looking uncertain. Welcome home, she said. Thanks. Ryan stepped inside, and it felt strange, like visiting a place that used to be his but had shifted into something else. The living room was clean but different. Emma's art supplies were spread on the coffee table instead of put away. There was a throw blanket on the couch that hadn't been there before. Everything okay? Ava asked. Fine, just weird being back. I can imagine. Ava grabbed her bag from the chair. I'll get out of your way. Let you two have your evening. You don't have to rush off. I know, but you probably want family time. She smiled at Emma. I'll see you Monday, okay? Okay. Thanks for staying with me, Ava. Anytime, kiddo. Ava left, and Ryan stood in his living room with his daughter, trying to shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed in the 6 days he'd been gone. Emma grabbed his hand. Come on, I want to show you what we did. She pulled him to the kitchen, where a calendar hung on the wall, new, covered in stickers and Emma's handwriting. Every day of the week Ryan had been gone was documented: soccer practice, homework time, movie night, the extra art session Ava had apparently added on Thursday. Ava said keeping a calendar helps families stay organized, Emma explained. So we made one together. Ryan studied the calendar, each day a little snapshot of the life Emma had lived without him. It was good, healthy, exactly what he'd wanted. This is great, Bug, he said, and meant it. That night, after Emma was asleep, Ryan sat on the back porch with a beer and tried to process the week. The job had gone well. Emma had been safe and happy. Ava had exceeded every expectation. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something Ryan wasn't sure he was ready for. His phone buzzed, a text from Ava. "Thank you for trusting me with Emma. It meant more than you know." Ryan stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "You did good, really good. Does that mean I passed the test?" "There'll be another trip in January." "So yeah, you passed." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared. Finally, "I'm glad." "And Ryan?" "Emma's amazing. You're doing an incredible job with her." Ryan set the phone down and looked up at the stars. Somewhere in the past 3 weeks, Ava had stopped being the woman who'd humiliated him at a party and become something else entirely. He just wasn't sure what. The science fair was chaos in the best possible way. 200 elementary school students had transformed the gymnasium into a maze of poster boards, baking soda volcanoes, and solar system models that defied the laws of physics. Ryan arrived at 5:45 p.m., scanning the crowd for Emma's station. He found her near the back wall, standing beside her volcano with the kind of nervous energy that meant she'd practiced her presentation 17 times, but was convinced she'd forget everything the moment someone asked a question. Ava stood beside her, adjusting the display board one last time. "Dad!" Emma spotted him and waved frantically. "You made it!" "Told you I would." Ryan hugged her, then stepped back to examine the volcano. It was painted dark brown with orange and red lava flowing down the sides, surprisingly detailed for an 8-year-old's work. "This looks incredible, Bug." Ava helped with the shading, and the lava glow, see how it looks like it's actually hot? Emma pointed to the gradient effect. That was her idea. Ryan glanced at Ava, who shrugged. "I may have learned a few things from YouTube tutorials." "It's really good work." "Thanks." Ava looked genuinely pleased. "I should probably head out. Let you two—" "Stay," Emma interrupted. "Please? You helped make it. You should be here when the judges come." Ava looked at Ryan, uncertain. He nodded. "You heard her. You're part of this." So Ava stayed, and when the judges made their rounds, Emma delivered her presentation flawlessly, explaining volcanic formation and tectonic plate movement with the confidence of someone who'd memorized every word. The judges asked follow-up questions, and Emma answered without hesitation. After they moved on, Emma exhaled dramatically. "Did I do okay?" "You were perfect," Ryan said. "Better than perfect," Ava added. "You're definitely winning this thing." Emma didn't win. That honor went to a 6th grader's robotics project, but she got an honorable mention, which she accepted with grace and immediately started planning improvements for next year's entry. On the drive home, Emma fell asleep in the back seat, clutching her certificate. Ryan glanced at Ava in the passenger seat. She'd ridden with them from the house, and it had felt natural to have her there, like she'd always been part of these moments. "You didn't have to stay," Ryan said quietly. "I wanted to. Emma worked really hard on that project. Still, you've already done more than I asked." Ava looked out the window. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why does it bother you when I help?" Ryan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "It doesn't bother me." "It does. Every time I do something with Emma, you get this look, like you're grateful and resentful at the same time." "That's not—" Ryan stopped because she was right. "It's complicated. Try me." Ryan drove in silence for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "For 5 years, it's been just me and Emma. Every decision, every responsibility, every moment, all mine. I built our life around that, and now you're here and you're good with her, and she's happy, and it should feel like a relief." "But it doesn't." "But it doesn't," Ryan confirmed. Because if you can do this, if someone else can step in and Emma's fine, maybe better than fine, then what was the point of all the sacrifices I made? What was the point of turning down promotions and missing opportunities and building my entire existence around being the only person she could count on? Ava was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was gentle. The point was that you kept her safe when she had no one else. You gave her stability when her world fell apart. You taught her she was loved, even when loving her meant giving up everything else. She paused. Me being here doesn't erase any of that, Ryan. It just means you don't have to carry it alone anymore. Ryan didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. They drove the rest of the way in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Just heavy with words neither of them knew how to say. When they got home, Ryan carried Emma inside and put her to bed without waking her. Ava was in the kitchen when he came back down, making tea. Want some? She offered. Sure. They sat at the kitchen table, mugs steaming between them. Outside, rain had started to fall, soft and steady against the windows. Can I ask you something now? Ryan said. Fair's fair. Why are you really doing this? And don't give me the guilt answer. There's got to be more to it than that. Ava wrapped her hands around her mug, staring into the tea like it might have answers. You remember what I said about my family? How I never really fit anywhere? Ryan nodded. I spent my whole childhood being the extra kid, the one who showed up every other weekend, who didn't have a room that was really mine, who watched my half-siblings get the kind of attention I only got in pieces. Ava's voice was steady, but there was pain underneath. I used to wonder what it would feel like to actually matter to someone, to be chosen instead of tolerated. Emma chose you, Ryan said quietly. Emma's a kid. She'd choose anyone who paid attention to her and brought her to museums. Ava looked up, meeting his eyes. But you chose me. You trusted me with the most important person in your world, even though I gave you every reason not to. That's not guilt, Ryan. That's belonging. The honesty in her voice hit Ryan harder than he expected. He'd spent so long thinking of Ava as the woman who'd made a mistake at a party, then as the woman trying to fix that mistake. He'd never considered that maybe she was just lonely, looking for a place to fit. You do matter, Ryan said. To Emma. And to... He stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. To you? Ava's smile was sad. You don't have to say it. I know where I stand. Do you? I'm the babysitter, the helper, the person who fills in the gaps when you can't be here. She shrugged. That's enough. It has to be. Ryan wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, that she'd become more than that somewhere along the way. But the words stuck in his throat, tangled up with loyalty to Sarah's memory and the fear of what it might mean if he let someone else in. So instead he just said, thank you for staying tonight. Anytime. Ava left after finishing her tea, and Ryan locked up the house, checked on Emma one more time, and went to bed. But sleep didn't come easy. He kept replaying the conversation, Ava's words about belonging, the look in her eyes when she'd called herself just the babysitter. She deserved better than that. The problem was, Ryan didn't know if he could give it to her. The next month passed in a rhythm that started to feel normal. Ryan worked, traveled to Seattle twice more, and came home to find Emma happy and Ava increasingly integrated into their lives. She started joining them for Saturday art classes without being invited. She showed up at soccer games to cheer Emma on. She brought dinner over on nights when Ryan worked late, claiming she'd made too much for one person anyway. Emma soaked up the attention. She started calling Ava just to talk, the way kids do with people they trust. Ryan would hear her on the phone in her room, giggling about something that had happened at school, asking Ava's opinion on whether purple or blue was a better color for her new backpack. It should have been fine. It was fine. Except Ryan kept catching himself watching Ava when she wasn't looking. The way she listened to Emma's stories with genuine interest, never checking her phone or letting her attention drift. The way she remembered small details. Emma's favorite flavor of juice, which stuffed animal she slept with on anxious nights. How she liked her grilled cheese cut into 4 squares instead of 2 triangles. The way she fit into their life like a piece Ryan hadn't known was missing. It terrified him. 2 weeks before Christmas, Emma asked if Ava could come to their tree decorating night. It's a family tradition, Ryan said carefully, not wanting to hurt Emma's feelings but needing to maintain some boundaries. Just you and me. Emma's face fell. But Ava's basically family now, isn't she? She's our friend. Friends can be family too. Emma crossed her arms, using the stubborn expression she'd inherited from Sarah. You always say family is the people who show up. Ava shows up. Ryan didn't have a good argument against that. I'll think about it. That means yes. That means I'll think about it. But Emma had already won, and they both knew it. That night, after Emma was asleep, Ryan called Ava. Hey, she answered, sounding surprised. Everything okay? Yeah, Emma wants you to come to our tree decorating thing on Saturday. It's kind of our tradition, but she's insistent, and I wanted to make sure you're comfortable with that before I commit to anything. There was a pause. You sure? I don't want to intrude on your traditions. According to Emma, you're basically family now, so apparently it's not an intrusion. Ava laughed, soft and genuine. She said that, direct quote. Well, if Emma wants me there, I'm there. Saturday arrived cold and clear. Ava showed up at 6 with hot chocolate mix and a bag of candy canes, which Emma immediately declared were necessary for proper tree decorating. They drove to the lot on Highway 9, where a man in a Santa hat sold trees out of his front yard. Emma ran ahead, examining each tree with the seriousness of a jeweler selecting diamonds. Too tall, too short, not full enough. This one's crooked. She's particular, Ryan said to Ava. She has standards. I respect that. They finally settled on a 7-foot Douglas fir that Emma swore was perfect, even though Ryan was pretty sure they'd passed 3 identical trees on the way. The man tied it to Ryan's car roof. Emma supervised the process to make sure it was secure, and they drove home with pine needles flying off the back. Setting up the tree was predictably chaotic. The stand didn't want to hold it straight, lights tangled themselves into impossible knots, and Emma kept rearranging ornaments because the color distribution wasn't balanced. But Ava jumped in without hesitation, untangling lights while Ryan wrestled with the stand, making jokes that had Emma laughing so hard she nearly dropped a glass ornament. When they finally got everything arranged, the tree lit up, and Emma stepped back with satisfaction. Perfect, she declared. It's pretty great, Ava agreed. Ryan looked at the tree, then at Emma, then at Ava standing beside her in his living room like she'd always been part of this moment, and something in his chest cracked open, just a little. Yeah, he said quietly. It is. They made hot chocolate and watched Christmas movies. Emma curled between Ryan and Ava on the couch. Halfway through the second movie, Emma fell asleep, her head on Ava's shoulder. She's out, Ava whispered. She always does this. Ryan stood carefully. I'll take her up. He carried Emma to bed, tucked her in with Humphrey, and came back downstairs to find Ava cleaning up the hot chocolate mugs. You don't have to do that. I know. Ava rinsed the mugs, set them in the dish rack. Tonight was really nice, Ryan. Thank you for including me. Emma would have staged a revolt if I hadn't. Still, it meant a lot. Ava grabbed her coat from the chair. I should head out. Let you have your evening. Ava. She stopped, hand on the doorknob. Ryan didn't know what he wanted to say. That she'd become important to them? That Emma wasn't the only one who'd started to depend on her? That somewhere between the science fair and tonight, Ava had stopped being an obligation and become something else entirely? Same time next week, he said instead, taking the coward's way out. Emma wants to bake cookies. Ava smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Yeah, same time next week. After she left, Ryan sat alone in the living room, the tree lights casting soft shadows across the walls. He picked up his phone, scrolled to Sarah's contact, still saved after all these years, and stared at her name. He'd spent 5 years building a life around her absence, 5 years making sure Emma knew she had a mother who'd loved her, even if she couldn't remember it. 5 years holding on to something that was gone. And now Ava was here and Emma was happy, and Ryan was standing at a crossroads he'd never expected to reach. The question wasn't whether he could move forward, it was whether he was brave enough to try. Christmas came and went. Emma got the art supplies she'd been asking for, plus a microscope that led to 3 days of examining everything in the house under magnification. Ryan took the week off work, and they fell into an easy routine, late breakfasts, movie marathons, building an elaborate blanket fort in the living room that took up the entire first floor. Ava texted on Christmas Day, "Merry Christmas. Hope you two are having a great day." Emma grabbed the phone before Ryan could respond and video called her immediately. Ava, look what I got. Emma proceeded to show her every single present in exhaustive detail while Ryan sat on the couch, watching his daughter's face light up as she talked to someone who wasn't him. When Emma finally ran off to play with her microscope, Ryan took the phone back. Sorry about that, he said. Don't be. She's excited. Ava was in what looked like a small apartment, minimal decorations, no evidence of any Christmas celebration of her own. What about you? Good day? Yeah, quiet, but good. Ryan hesitated. What are you doing today? Oh, catching up on work stuff. Watching terrible holiday movies? By yourself? It's fine. I'm used to it. Something about the casual way she said it, like spending Christmas alone was just a normal part of her life, made Ryan's chest tighten. Come over, he said before he could think better of it. What? Come over. We've got leftovers from dinner. Emma's been asking about you, and no one should spend Christmas watching bad movies alone. Ryan, you don't have to. I know. I'm asking anyway. There was a long pause. Then Ava said, Give me 30 minutes. She showed up with a bottle of wine and a box of chocolates, looking uncertain. Emma attacked her with a hug the moment she walked in, dragging her to the living room to show her the microscope. They spent the evening playing board games. Emma won at Monopoly through what Ryan suspected was creative interpretation of the rules and eating reheated turkey. When Emma finally went to bed, Ryan and Ava sat in the living room with the wine, the tree lights the only illumination. Thank you for inviting me over, Ava said quietly. I wasn't lying when I said I'm used to holidays alone, but that doesn't mean I like it. You shouldn't have to be alone. Neither should you. Ryan looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone who'd become essential to his life without him quite noticing when it happened. Someone who'd stepped into the hardest parts of his world and made them easier. Someone who fit. Ava. His phone rang, shattering the moment. Ryan glanced at the screen. Gerald. I should take this, he said apologetically. Of course. Ryan stepped into the kitchen. Gerald, hey, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Sorry to bother you on a holiday, but I wanted to give you advance notice. Seattle needs you for a full month starting mid-January. Big project rollout. Can't be done remotely. Ryan's stomach dropped. A month? I know it's a lot, but it's make or break for your position there. They need boots on the ground, and you're the guy. Gerald paused. Look, if you can't do it, I understand. But this is the kind of opportunity that doesn't come twice. Ryan thought about Emma, about missing 4 weeks of bedtimes and school pickups and Saturday art classes, about asking Ava to basically move into his house for a month, about what he'd be giving up if he said no. Let me think about it, Ryan said. End of the week, okay? Seattle's pushing for an answer. After Gerald hung up, Ryan stood in the kitchen, staring at nothing. A month. That wasn't a business trip. That was basically moving out. He went back to the living room. Ava took one look at his face and knew something was wrong. What happened? Ryan told her. The month-long trip, the project, the impossible choice between career advancement and being present for his daughter. What are you going to do? Ava asked. I don't know. Ryan sat down heavily. I can't ask you to live here for a month. That's insane. Why is it insane? Because it is. Because you have your own life. Because this isn't your responsibility. Ava set down her wine glass. What if I want it to be? You don't know what you're saying. I do. Ava's voice was firm. Ryan, I've been part of Emma's life for 3 months now. I know her schedule, her friends, her fears. I know she has nightmares about losing you the same way she lost her mom. I know she needs someone steady when you can't be here, and I can be that person. For a month? For however long you need. Ryan shook his head. This is too much to ask. Then it's a good thing I'm offering, not being asked. Ava leaned forward. Let me do this. Let me help. Not because I owe you or because I feel guilty, but because I care about that kid upstairs and I care about... She stopped, catching herself. Care about what? Ryan asked quietly. Ava looked away. Nothing. Doesn't matter. But it did matter. Ryan could see it in the way she wouldn't meet his eyes, the slight flush on her cheeks, the careful way she chose her next words. I'll do it, Ava said. The month. Whatever you need. Just say yes to the job. Ryan wanted to argue, wanted to protect her from making a sacrifice she'd regret. But the truth was, he needed this, needed her. Okay, he said finally. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome. They sat in silence, the weight of what they'd just agreed to hanging between them. Outside, snow had started to fall, soft and quiet against the windows. Ryan watched Ava watch the snow, and realized with sudden clarity that he was in serious trouble. Because somewhere between the gala and tonight, between her first apology and this moment, Ava Bennett had stopped being a complication and become something he couldn't imagine his life without. And he had no idea what to do about that. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed in a blur of preparation. Ava practically moved into the guest room, bringing clothes and toiletries and setting up a small workspace in the corner. Emma thought the whole thing was an extended sleepover and was thrilled. Ryan tried not to think about what it meant to have Ava living in his house. Tried not to notice how natural it felt to have her there in the mornings, making coffee while he packed Emma's lunch. Tried not to watch the way she and Emma had developed their own routines, their own jokes, their own relationship that existed independent of him. New Year's Eve, Ryan worked late at the office, tying up loose ends before the Seattle trip. When he got home at 9, he found Ava and Emma in the living room building a blanket fort. "Dad, we're making a fort to watch the ball drop from," Emma announced. "I can see that." Ava's idea? She said New Year's is better from inside a fort. Ryan looked at Ava, who shrugged. Everything's better from inside a fort. They watched the countdown from inside the fort, Emma wedged between them with a bowl of popcorn. When the ball dropped and everyone on TV started cheering, Emma declared it was the best New Year's ever and promptly fell asleep. Ryan carried her to bed, and when he came back down, Ava was cleaning up the popcorn. "Happy New Year," she said. "Happy New Year. Big year ahead, new job, new challenges." "Yeah." Ryan helped her fold the blankets. "I couldn't do it without you." "Sure you could. You'd just be more stressed." "Ava." Ryan waited until she looked at him. "I mean it. Thank you for all of this." "You're welcome." They stood there in the living room, the TV still playing coverage of celebrations in other time zones, and Ryan felt the words he'd been avoiding for weeks pushing at the back of his throat. But before he could say anything, Ava stepped back. "I should get some sleep. Big month ahead." "Right. Yeah. Good night." "Good night, Ryan." She went upstairs and Ryan stood alone in the living room, surrounded by the evidence of a life that had expanded beyond just him and Emma, and wondered when exactly he'd stopped being afraid of that. Mid-January arrived too fast. Ryan's suitcase sat packed by the door, his flight leaving at 6 a.m. Emma was already at school. Ryan had said goodbye that morning, holding her longer than usual while she squirmed and told him to stop being weird. Ava had come over the night before to go through final details. Now she stood in the kitchen, checking the calendar one more time. "I've got it," she said. "Everything's covered." "I know." "Then why do you look like you're about to jump out of your skin?" Ryan laughed, short and humorless. "Because I'm leaving my daughter for a month." "She'll be fine. We'll be fine." Ava's voice was confident, certain. "I promise." "I know," Ryan said again. And he did. That was the strange part. He actually trusted her completely. He just wasn't sure he trusted himself anymore. The cab arrived at 5:30. Ryan grabbed his suitcase, took one last look around the house, and headed for the door. "Ryan!" He turned. Ava stood in the hallway, backlit by the kitchen light, looking smaller somehow than she usually did. "Be safe," she said, "and don't worry about us. We've got this." "I know you do." Ryan left before he could say anything else. Before he could cross the line, he'd been walking for 3 months. The cab pulled away, and Ryan watched his house disappear in the rearview mirror, carrying with it the 2 people who mattered most, and realized that somewhere along the way, Ava had stopped being just the woman who helped with Emma. She'd become someone he couldn't imagine losing. Seattle felt different this time. The hotel room was nicer, corner suite with a view of the harbor, but Ryan barely noticed. He unpacked mechanically, set up his laptop, and checked his phone. A text from Ava with a photo. Emma grinning at the breakfast table, holding up a waffle shaped like a star. Day 1 successful. She ate actual breakfast instead of arguing for cookies. Ryan smiled despite the tightness in his chest. He typed back, "That's a miracle. What's your secret?" I told her astronauts eat waffles. She's very motivated by space facts right now. The first week crawled by in a haze of meetings and project planning. Ryan called home every night, talked to Emma about her day, listened to her explain the differences between red giants and white dwarfs with the enthusiasm only an 8-year-old could muster. Ava was always there in the background, close enough that Emma could grab her if she needed something, but far enough away to give them privacy. It was working, better than Ryan had any right to expect. But on day 8, everything fell apart. Ryan was in back-to-back meetings when his phone started buzzing. He ignored the first call, probably a spam number. The second call came from Emma's school. He excused himself and stepped into the hallway. "Mr. Cole? This is Principal Morrison. Emma had an incident during recess." Ryan's blood went cold. "What kind of incident?" "She fell from the monkey bars. We think her arm might be broken. The paramedics are here now and we're transporting her to Mercy Hospital. Is there someone who can meet her there?" "Ava Bennett. She's authorized to make medical decisions. I'll call her now." Ryan hung up and immediately dialed Ava. She answered on the first ring. "Ryan? What's wrong?" "Emma fell. They think her arm's broken. They're taking her to Mercy Hospital." The words came out too fast, tripping over each other. "I gave them your name. You need to get there now." "I'm leaving right now." Ava's voice was steady, calm in the way Ryan couldn't be. "I'll call you from the hospital. She's going to be fine." "I should be there." "I know. But you're not, so I am. Trust me, okay?" Ryan wanted to scream that he should never have taken this job, never have left Emma, never have put his career ahead of being there when she needed him. But Ava had already hung up, already on her way, and all Ryan could do was stand in a Seattle office hallway 3,000 miles from his daughter while strangers took care of her. He called Gerald, said there was a family emergency, and went back to his hotel room. The next 2 hours were the longest of his life. He paced, checked his phone every 30 seconds, and imagined every worst-case scenario his brain could conjure. Finally, Ava called. "She's okay," Ava said immediately. "Fractured radius, clean break. They're putting a cast on now. She picked purple." Ryan sank onto the bed, relief washing through him so hard he felt dizzy. "Can I talk to her?" "Hold on." Shuffling sounds, then Emma's voice, small and shaky. "Dad?" "Hey, Bug. I heard you tried to fly." "It wasn't on purpose," Emma sniffled. "I was trying to do the thing where you skip a bar, and I missed. It really hurt." "I bet it did, but Ava says you're being brave." "She let me pick the cast color, and she said I can get people to sign it, which is kind of cool, I guess." "Very cool." Ryan's voice cracked slightly. "I'm sorry I'm not there." "It's okay. Ava's here. She held my hand when they took the x-rays." A pause. "I was really scared, Dad." "I know, Bug, but you're okay now. That's what matters." They talked for a few more minutes before Ava took the phone back. "They want to keep her for observation for a few hours. Make sure there's no concussion. I'll take her home after that." "Thank you." The words felt inadequate. "Ava, don't. You'd do the same for me." "Would I?" There was a pause. "Yeah, I think you would." After they hung up, Ryan sat in the hotel room and stared at the wall. Emma was fine. Ava had handled it perfectly. There was no reason for the guilt eating through his chest. Except there was. Because for 8 days, Ava had been the one making breakfast, checking homework, tucking Emma in at night. Ava had been the one who dropped everything to rush to the hospital, who held Emma's hand during x-rays, who let her pick purple for the cast. Ava was doing everything Ryan was supposed to do. And Emma was fine with it. Better than fine. That night's video call was different. Emma showed off her cast, already signed by 3 nurses and a resident who'd drawn a smiley face, and explained the physics of why bones break with the kind of enthusiasm that meant she'd already moved past the trauma. After she went to bed, Ava stayed on the call. "You okay?" she asked. "I should be asking you that. You're the one who spent 6 hours in the ER." "I'm fine." "But you look like you haven't slept." Ryan rubbed his face. "I keep thinking about what could have happened. If it had been worse, if there'd been complications. I was in a meeting about quarterly projections while my daughter was in an ambulance." "But she's okay. That's what matters." "Is it?" Ryan's frustration finally broke through. Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like Emma doesn't actually need me anymore. She's got you. Ava's expression shifted, something hurt flickering across her features. That's not true. Isn't it? You're doing everything I would do, everything I should be doing. What's the difference? The difference, Ava said quietly, is that when she was scared today, the first thing she said was, I want my dad. Not me, you. And I had to be the one to tell her you couldn't be there, and it broke my heart because I'm not you, Ryan. I'm never going to be you. Ryan stared at the screen, at Ava's face tight with emotion she was trying to control. I'm just the stand-in, she continued. The person who shows up when you can't. And that's fine, that's what I signed up for. But don't act like I'm replacing you, because that's the one thing I could never do. Ava, I should go. Emma might wake up. Good night, Ryan. She hung up before he could respond. Ryan sat in the silence of the hotel room, her words echoing. He'd been so focused on his own guilt, his own fear of being replaced, that he hadn't considered what this was costing Ava, what it meant to care for a child who called for someone else when she was hurt, to be essential but not irreplaceable. He opened a text to Ava, typed and deleted 3 different messages, and finally settled on, I'm sorry, you're right. Thank you for being there today. She didn't respond. The next 2 weeks were strained. Emma recovered quickly, kids always did, and adjusted to having a cast with remarkable speed. She turned it into a fashion statement, collecting signatures like trophies. Ava sent daily updates, photos, and videos, but her texts to Ryan were shorter now, more professional. The warmth had cooled. Ryan tried to fix it during their nightly calls, but every conversation felt forced. Emma would chatter away, and Ava would contribute when necessary, but the easy rapport they'd built was gone. On day 23, Ryan cracked. He was supposed to stay in Seattle until the end of the week, but he called Gerald and said he needed to go home early. Gerald didn't ask questions, just approved the time off. Ryan caught the first flight Friday morning and landed at 3 p.m. local time. He drove straight to the house, where Ava's car sat in the driveway. Through the front window, he could see her and Emma at the kitchen table working on homework. Ryan let himself in quietly. Emma heard the door and looked up, eyes going wide. Dad! She jumped from her chair, carefully, protecting the cast, and ran to him. You're early! Surprise! Ryan hugged her, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. How's the arm? Good. It itches, but Ava got me this special stick to scratch under the cast. Want to see? Maybe later, Bug. Can you give me and Ava a minute? Emma looked between them, suddenly wary. Are you guys fighting? No, Ryan said. Yes, Ava said at the same time. Emma crossed her arms. You sound like you're fighting. We're not, Ryan assured her. I just need to talk to Ava about grown-up stuff. Can you go play upstairs for a bit? Emma narrowed her eyes, but eventually trudged upstairs, muttering about how grown-ups were weird. Ava stood by the kitchen table, arms wrapped around herself like armor. You didn't have to come back early. Yeah, I did. Ryan set down his bag. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. I'm doing my job. You're doing yours. Everything's fine. It's not fine. You're barely speaking to me. What do you want me to say, Ryan? Ava's composure cracked, voice rising. That I'm fine being the backup parent? That it doesn't hurt when Emma cries for you and I can't fix it? That I haven't spent the last 3 weeks pretending my feelings don't exist because you're still in love with a ghost? The words hung in the air, sharp and honest. Ryan took a step closer. What feelings? Ava laughed bitterly. Don't make me say it. Say it anyway. Why? So you can tell me you're not ready? That you'll never be ready? That I'm convenient but not... She stopped, blinking hard. Forget it. This was a mistake. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. Ryan moved faster, blocking her path. Move, Ryan. Not until you finish that sentence. I'm convenient, but not what? Not her, Ava's voice broke. I'll never be Sarah. I'll never be the person you actually want. I'm just the woman who asked a stupid question at a party and has been trying to make up for it ever since. You think that's why you're here? Guilt? Isn't it? No. Ryan's voice was firm. You're here because you're the first person in 5 years who made me believe I could have more than just survival. You're here because Emma lights up when she sees you. You're here because somewhere between that gala and today, you became someone I can't imagine my life without. Ava stared at him,
tears streaming down her face. "Don't say things you don't mean."
I mean it. Ryan reached for her hand and she let him take it. I'm not in love with a ghost, Ava. I'm in love with you. And that terrifies me because I don't know how to do this without feeling like I'm betraying Sarah's memory or setting myself up to lose everything again. So what do we do? I don't know. Ryan's thumb brushed across her knuckles. But I know I don't want to do it without you. Ava closed her eyes, breathing hard. I can't be your second choice. You're not. You never were. Ryan waited until she looked at him. You're the person who showed up when I was too scared to ask for help. You're the person who learned my daughter's entire world because you cared, not because you had to. You're the person who made me realize that moving forward isn't betrayal, it's survival. Ryan? He kissed her, soft and careful, like she might break. Ava went still for half a second, then kissed him back, her free hand coming up to grip his shirt. When they pulled apart, Ava was crying harder. I'm a mess, she whispered. So am I. This is complicated. Everything worthwhile is. They stood in the hallway, foreheads pressed together, until Emma's voice drifted down from upstairs. Are you guys done fighting yet? I'm hungry. Ava laughed, watery but genuine. We should feed her. Probably. But neither of them moved right away. They stayed there, holding on to each other, letting the moment stretch. Finally, Ryan called up the stairs. We're ordering pizza! Come help pick toppings! Emma thundered down the stairs, cast held protectively, and started debating the merits of pepperoni versus sausage. Ava joined in, and Ryan watched them argue with the kind of fondness that came from knowing these people were his. After dinner, Emma wanted to show Ryan everything he'd missed. New drawings, a science project about magnetism, the book she'd finished reading with Ava. Ryan listened to all of it, soaking in the sound of her voice, the way she gestured wildly with her good hand. When bedtime finally came, Emma hugged them both. I'm glad you're home, Dad. Me too, Bug. And I'm glad Ava's here too. Emma looked between them. Are you guys going to be weird now? Probably, Ava admitted. That's okay. Grown-ups are always weird. Emma yawned. Night. After she was asleep, Ryan and Ava sat on the couch, not quite touching, but close enough. What happens now? Ava asked. I finished the Seattle project remotely. Gerald already approved it. Ryan had made that call from the airport. No more month-long trips. I'm not missing any more of Emma's life. And us? Ryan took her hand again. We figure it out, slowly, together. I'm still scared, Ava admitted. So am I. Good. At least we're scared together. They sat in silence, the house quiet around them, and Ryan thought about the strange path that had brought them here. A question asked at a party. A mistake that turned into an apology. An apology that turned into help. Help that turned into something neither of them had been looking for. Can I ask you something? Ryan said. Always. That night at the gala, why did you really ask that question? The truth. Ava was quiet for a long moment. Because I saw someone who looked like they were drowning but too proud to ask for help. And I thought if I could just make you see it, maybe you'd do something about it. She smiled sadly. I was an idiot who thought public humiliation was the same as honesty. It was honest. It was cruel. It was both. Ryan squeezed her hand. But maybe I needed it. Maybe I needed someone to force me to look at what I'd become. A devoted father? A scared one. The winter gave way to spring, and their life found a new rhythm. Ava didn't move in. That would have been too fast, too complicated for Emma to process. But she was there most evenings. They cooked dinner together, helped with homework, and established boundaries that protected everyone involved. Emma adjusted with the resilience kids always showed. She asked questions. Does this mean Ava's your girlfriend? Are you going to get married? What about Mom? And Ryan answered them honestly. Yes, Ava was his girlfriend. Marriage wasn't something they were thinking about yet, and Mom would always be Mom, but that didn't mean they couldn't love other people too. Emma thought about that last answer for a long time before saying, Okay, that makes sense. Sometimes Ryan would find her looking at the photos of Sarah he kept on the mantle, and he'd sit with her, telling stories about her mother. Ava never intruded on those moments, understanding instinctively that some spaces needed to stay sacred. But she built her own spaces too. Saturday art classes became a thing the three of them did together. Ava started teaching Emma to cook, which resulted in several kitchen disasters, but also some surprisingly good meals. She read to Emma at night sometimes when Ryan was tired, and Emma started requesting her for specific books because Ava does the funny voices better. In June, Ryan got offered a permanent position with the Seattle team, fully remote with occasional travel. He accepted, and the salary increase meant they could finally afford the bigger house Emma had been asking about, the one with a yard big enough for a dog. They moved in August. Emma picked the purple room upstairs, and Ryan claimed the master bedroom. The third bedroom, smaller but with good light, sat empty for exactly 1 week before Ava started leaving things there. A change of clothes, toiletries, books. "I'm not moving in," she insisted when Ryan noticed. "Of course not. I just stay over sometimes. It's practical. Very practical." By September, she had a key. One evening in October, almost a year after the gala, Ryan found Ava sitting on the back porch, watching Emma play with the dog they'd finally gotten, a rescue mutt named Biscuit, who had 3 legs and an attitude problem. "Hey," Ryan said, sitting beside her. "Hey yourself. What are you thinking about?" Ava smiled. "How weird life is. A year ago, I was the new person at a company trying to make an impression. I had no idea what I was doing, no real connections, just trying to prove I belonged. And now? Now I've got a place I come home to, a kid who argues with me about homework, a guy who makes terrible coffee but won't admit it." She looked at him. "I belong somewhere." Ryan wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "You do." Emma noticed them sitting together and ran over, Biscuit limping behind her. "Dad! Ava! Watch what Biscuit learned." She proceeded to demonstrate a trick that mostly involved the dog sitting when he felt like it. "Isn't he smart?" "The smartest," Ava agreed. Emma flopped onto the grass, Biscuit climbing into her lap despite being almost her size. "This is the best year ever," she announced to no one in particular. Ryan looked at Ava, who looked back at him with eyes that held everything they'd built together. Not perfect, not without complications, but real. "Yeah," Ryan said quietly. "It really is." That night, after Emma was asleep and Ava had officially decided to stay over again, they sat in the living room with the lights off, just existing together. "Ryan?" Ava's voice was soft in the darkness. "Yeah?" "Thank you for giving me a chance, even when you had every reason not to." Ryan thought about that, about the night at the gala when Ava had asked a question that cracked him open, about every moment since when she'd proven herself trustworthy, about the family they'd built from wreckage and mistakes and the willingness to try. "You gave me one too," Ryan said. "When you decided one bad moment didn't define who I was. We're even then. More than even." They sat in comfortable silence until Ava spoke again. "Do you ever regret it? Letting me in?" Ryan didn't hesitate. "Never. Not even when I'm terrible at cooking tacos?" "Especially then," Ava laughed, the sound filling the quiet house with warmth, and Ryan realized something he'd been too afraid to articulate until now. Moving forward wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about making room for the future while still honoring what came before. Sarah would always be Emma's mother, would always be the woman Ryan had loved first, completely, without reservation. But Ava was the woman who'd shown him that love wasn't finite, that hearts expanded rather than replaced. That family wasn't just blood or history, it was the people who showed up again and again, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Emma's voice drifted from upstairs, calling for water. Ava started to get up, but Ryan stopped her. "I've got it." He went upstairs, filled Emma's water bottle, and sat on the edge of her bed while she drank. "Dad?" "Yeah, Bug. Are you happy?" The question was so direct, so Emma, that Ryan almost laughed. "Yeah, I am. Are you?" Emma considered this seriously. "Yeah. I like having Ava around, and Biscuit, and the new house." She paused. "I think Mom would like it too." Ryan's throat tightened. "Yeah, I think she would." "Good." Emma handed back the water bottle. "Night, Dad." "Night, Bug." He went back downstairs to find Ava exactly where he'd left her, waiting, always showing up. And Ryan understood, finally, what it meant to build a life from broken pieces. You didn't hide the cracks or pretend the damage never happened. You just found someone willing to help you carry the weight. Someone who saw the mess and stayed anyway. Someone who turned a mistake into a second chance. "Come here," Ava said, patting the couch beside her. Ryan sat, and she curled into his side like she belonged there. Because she did. They stayed like that until the early hours of morning, watching the world outside shift from dark to gray to the pale gold of dawn, building something quiet and resilient from the ruins of what came before. And when the sun finally rose, filling the room with light, Ryan thought about the question Ava had asked him a year ago. Why did he live like he was already done with life? The answer was simple now. He didn't. Not anymore. Because life wasn't something you survived. It was something you built, piece by piece, with the people brave enough to stay, with the mistakes you learned from, with the second chances you didn't know you needed until they showed up asking dangerous questions at corporate parties. Emma wandered downstairs at 7, rubbing sleep from her eyes, and climbed onto the couch between them. "You guys are weird," she mumbled, still half asleep. "Yeah," Ryan agreed, kissing the top of her head. "We really are." And somehow, that was exactly right. Because the best families weren't the ones that looked perfect from the outside. They were the ones that held together despite the mess. The ones that chose each other every day, even when it was complicated. The ones built from honesty instead of pretense. The ones that started with a question nobody wanted to answer and ended with a home nobody wanted to leave. That was the real story. Not about loss or redemption or any of the easy narratives people told themselves. It was about the messy, complicated truth that sometimes the worst moments led to the best things. That sometimes strangers became family. That sometimes moving forward meant letting go of the weight you'd been carrying alone. And that sometimes the person who broke you open was the same person who helped you heal. Ryan had spent 5 years building walls. Ava had spent 3 months dismantling them. And Emma, smart, observant Emma, had been watching the whole time, learning that love wasn't a finite resource to be guarded, but an expanding thing that made room for everyone willing to show up. The three of them sat on that couch as morning fully arrived, Biscuit eventually joining the pile, and nobody said anything profound or meaningful. They just existed together, imperfect and whole, in the house they'd made into a home. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.